Hey, welcome back to The Dive. Today on the show, we have Doug Hurst from Elevation Gold Mining. Doug has over 34 years of experience in the mining industry, and we're going to get his take on the recent talk about the de-dollarization of the US dollar and how it's being talked about on mainstream media, central banks purchasing record amounts of gold and what it could mean, the Fed increasing rates, his conversations with investors lately. He's also going to let us know what's new from Elevation Gold Mining. Hey, Doug, welcome back to The Dive. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're most welcome, Cassandra. Very good.
Okay, so let's start off with this. Both Fox News and CNN did stories on the de-dollarization of the US dollar over the last 3 days. How much do you buy into the de-dollarization narrative?
Well, geopolitics says that eventually de-dollarization is going to take hold. And it's already starting to take hold because so many foreign entities pulled together debt in US dollars. There's going to be a lot of pain, is my guess, over the next 4 or 5 years. And whether people want to de-dollarize or not, it's probably going to happen. Yeah. And then we also see that Iran and Saudi Arabia have decided to make up. So a dollarization of the world was really led by the U.S. striking deals with Saudi Arabia to buy oil only in U.S. dollars, and so this too is on shaky ground as well. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on and talk about central banks and gold purchases. What trends are you noticing, and what do you think it implies?
Well, it feels like the world is now divided into a couple of camps, and one of them includes China and Russia, which have been busy filling their coffers with gold, and then the sort of U.S. Western allies, and most of the Western allies have sold their gold. I mean, Canada sold their last bar of gold, a decade ago. It was quite a while ago. And of course, they sold it at the low. They're terrible traders. But I'm a terrible trader too, so I can't step on their toes too much. And the U.S. I don't know if the U.S. has been buying gold. They certainly there's been no news items about it, but they have held on to their gold. So so I think that the fact that China and Russia have continued to be aggressive buyers of gold for their coffers just says that they're preparing for something, a de-dollarization of the world, for that matter. Yeah,
Do you think that the Fed is done with increasing rates?
I do. I do.
Okay.
I think that recent bank runs were a bit of a surprise to the Fed. But I mean, if you continue to ratchet up rates the way they have, I mean, incredibly aggressive rate raising, faster than Volcker for that matter, many moons ago, and you just know that if you're raising the cost of all sorts of financial instruments by by 100%, because they were zero and they're now dramatically higher than that. I feel for those that have debt and mortgages. It's just not an easy situation. And so having said that, the Fed tends to raise rates until something breaks. And I think something has recently broken. And, with Credit Suisse, there's a lot of news about Deutsche Bank, what's happening with Deutsche Bank. And this is all because we've come off the bottom, from zero to something. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on and talk about mining. What are your conversations with junior investors like right now? Are things starting to pick up given the recent uptick in price?
No, no, it's really interesting. It's just fascinating. I mean, it feels like the funding for junior mining companies is very strained, very, very difficult thing. And so despite the fact that gold has moved up, people are just not paying attention to precious metals. Now, there is a lot of strength in the market, in the metals market, but you know what? Mining equities have hardly budged. And so the financing window is not open yet. And some companies with really good contacts and really strong financial sense can raise money, but most can't. And so it's still really early days in terms of mining equities. Interesting, eh? I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, what do you think it would take to get capital to start flowing into the juniors again?
Boy, I'd have said that there's so many things on the positive plate that the gates would have opened to some of that. But so I don't know. I guess it's just higher prices, some sort of a black swan event. Boy, I don't know. I've seen many precious metal markets over the years. Many of them were driven by exploration discoveries. Wonderful discoveries that made investors a lot of money, and then that money kept circulating back into the industry. And we've had one or two discoveries and takeovers, but not many. Um, well, Great Bear is probably the most recent, really wonderful discovery. But you've got Newfound, so there hasn't been a lot. There hasn't been a lot for the amount of money that's gone into exploration. You would think that we might have had a few other discoveries, and those discoveries have just not lit the market on fire. So I guess it's up to all the other strong influences on precious metals that will eventually bring it into the light. But yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
you don't have a crystal ball. It's hard to tell. Okay, so Doug, the company has already sold future production for the first half of 2023. Can you walk us through the decision?
Yeah, you know what? It's the Moss mine has been a high cost mine all along, and when in the early days of this precious metals market, we see spikes in the gold price. So we just decided that we were going to forward sell. We also were reluctant to do an equity financing. So the equity markets were really closed for equity financing. And so what we've done is that we've taken on a bit of debt to help continue developing the project and to continue developing the mine. And one of the conditions of that was that we had to forward sell some gold in order to cover our operating margins, which is a totally reasonable thing to do for debt holders. And so we've been very cautious about selling forward some of our production. But we've managed to hit the spike. So we sold some at 1930, 1940, 1950, and I think recently a little bit higher than that. So it's really a protective measure. We're not going to go ahead and sell 3 and 4 and 5 years ahead like Barrick did a couple of decades ago. But we're just making sure that our operating margins are covered. And it is one of the debt covenants that we have. So, yeah.
Okay, now the company is also producing with a market cap under $25 million.
Yeah.
What needs to happen to unlock shareholder value here?
Well, so there's a couple of things that we're doing. I mean, so for the last couple of years, we've spent a fair amount of capital and a lot of energy and expertise sort of stabilizing the mine, making sure that it's running properly. When we first merged with Northern Vertex, a big chunk of the reserves that we were mining were very low order, sort of measured and indicated, and a big chunk of the tons that we put on the leach pad were inferred. And now 90% plus of all the tons that we put on the leach pad is proven improbable, so that we have a much better handle on what's happening with the actual mine itself. And then we drilled a couple of targets outside of the mine area, and we haven't had the discoveries that we wanted, and that's fair. But what we did discover is that there's a very thick package of well mineralized rock about 1 kilometer west of the West Pit. Now we have permitted an open pit out there, and so And we're calling this the Reynolds zone, but it may end up becoming just the entire west zone. So we've had very thick intersections in drilling of good grade material. And so we're starting to think that that this material to the west, we've already permitted pits out there. And so what that will end up doing is we think, in the short term, we'll be able to do some drilling this year and into early next. And we'll be able to outline a fairly large zone of good grade material out there. And so this year we're hoping to produce about 40,000 ounces, and next year will probably be quite similar. But thereafter, if we really start to flesh out this west zone, we might be able to. Well, we would probably extend the mine life first, and then if we find more, that we would expand production. Anyway, so. In a nutshell, the operation is on much firmer ground now. We've changed out several personnel. The new CEO is a guy named Tim Svensson. He's a wonderful, wonderful manager. Has made my job a lot easier, that's for sure. And we recently brought on a new mine manager, and people on site are very, very good. Now, the other thing too is that we also have a new mining contractor. So Leadcore is now our mining contractor on site, and they're, they've been a very wonderful change in terms of operating the operation. So that's sort of the update in a nutshell, anyways.
So for investors watching, Doug, is there anything else, any timelines or events that they should be watching out for as we enter into the second quarter of the year?
Yeah, you know what? We're in the process of pulling together sort of very long-term mine plans, and we'll be putting that into an investor deck in the next month or two. So watch out for that. We'll be starting to talk to investors through April and May, and we're just going to roll out sort of our long-term mine vision. Anyways, I guess that's probably the best way to put it. So we aren't drilling, we are not drilling right now. We probably still have some more drill results to come out. Takes a long time for results to come back to us. It's 100 days these days. It's just terrible. It's a long time. It's still a long time. And so if we mount a new drilling campaign later this fall, then that's something certainly to look forward to. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good, Doug. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing the company's update with us. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks so much for contacting. Cheers.
To our audience at home, thank you so much for tuning in today. We will be back again tomorrow with another interview, so be sure to stay tuned by hitting that notification bell and subscribing below, please. Bye.